Hello for the last time, seniors. This is your last lecture, I guess. I don't like that word right now, but this is your last assignment for me, and you'll turn it in and you will get yourself graduated sometime in this next week. So that's very exciting. Not only your last assignment for me, but your last assignment for high school, which is crazy. At least high school English. You might have some other assignments. It depends on the order. Anyway, let me just have my moment, okay? Um, I am really excited for you. And I know you guys are about to step out on a whole new journey in your life. And I've talked to a couple of you about the book, and your reactions have been mixed, which is fair. Kafka is weird. And I think it's a very fair question to ask, why in the world are we reading the Metamorphosis? What are we supposed to get out of it? And I planned this text well before we had everything happen with COVID-19 and our stay-at-home order. So on some level, I find it really ironic that this text only works a little bit better. But I've always been interested in the theme of social isolation. I think it's something that we all experience at some point in our lives. I think we experience it to a certain level in our high school experience. And I think that as we move into our adult life, late teens, early 20s, we experience it in a much deeper way. And so that's one of the reasons why I chose the Metamorphosis. I think the idea of Gregor being transformed into a bug allows us to see this picture of social isolation in a brand new way. And it makes us think about how being alone, or at least feeling alone, impacts us as humans. Gregor was the sole provider of his family, but once he turned into a bug, everybody treats him more and more like a worthless insect. And it kind of confirms his fears that he's only worth something as long as others can get something out of him. I mean, even his family only wants him for his ability to work. Watching Greet and her emotional change towards him, I think, is the most tragic. At first she is accommodating and tries to help him find the right kind of trash to eat. And then eventually she's the one who declares that she can't deal with this anymore. And that leads to Gregor's ultimate demise. He can't live if Greet doesn't want connection with him. And Gregor's experience of being in the human world, but being a bug, is like such a literal example of how we feel sometimes. He's half in this bug world where he's got all these weird tendencies. He likes to climb on walls and hide under things and eat trash. But he also likes to hear the violin and wants connection with his family. And he physically can't share this experience with anybody, and nobody else understands. And so he just kind of has to sit in this feeling of feeling other and of feeling different. And I think that is definitely something we all have felt at some point. And like I said, just social isolation just fascinates me. And I just think it's something that's important to not only to consider the concept of social isolation, but to consider how you can build up tools to help yourself not feel so isolated in the years to come. So we've had this advent of social media and over the last decade, and with that has come a lot of opportunities to feel more connected with others. But then we also have these conversations about how those connections aren't real, and there's a larger sense of isolation in our culture because this social media can offer this kind of fake connection that doesn't actually meet our deep needs for connection. Whether or not you feel that's true, it's definitely a conversation that's happening. We also are in this coronavirus time, and I think this is an additional layer of forced isolation that brings about new challenges now. And I don't foresee those challenges going away in like a week. I think that in your first year of adult life, you're going to have some effects of coronavirus showing up all over. And a sense of isolation will definitely come with that. And then in general, just feeling isolated from different groups is something that happens. It's kind of hard for us to find ourselves. That's not what I wanted to happen. Let's go back. So ultimately, that distracted me. Ultimately, the thing I really love about literature, and I hope you picked up on this a little bit throughout the year, is that pieces from the early 1900s can still have insight today. Pieces from Shakespeare still speak to our lives and can illuminate some aspects of our human qualities. Now, I will say that Kafka is not hopeful. He talks about social isolation and he essentially says, hey, social isolation, it gonna kill you. Which is kind of true. If you don't do anything about social isolation, there are some really big impacts to your body and to your mental health. But he also had a really hard life, and his writing has always been towards the macabre or the dark or death or things like that. And if you're into this story, he's got much better stories. I recommend The Trial. That one's definitely my favorite. But for all of you, as you transition to college and your adult life and whatever you're doing next, I really want you to be thinking about this concept of isolation and remember two things. One, that everyone at some point in their life will experience a sense of isolation. Literally everyone. And I think this especially happens in our late teens and our early 20s as we are setting about the task of figuring out who we want to be in life, what type of adult we want to be. So we're really testing out what we do for others versus what we do for ourselves. And sometimes admitting what we do for ourselves and what we're into isn't what aligns to what all of our friends are into. And so having to make that decision, or at least that assertion, makes us feel kind of like we're a bug who also appreciates violin music. The next couple of years are gonna feel weird. That's the second thing. And I just need you to know that that's one, very normal, and two, okay. It's not gonna feel like this forever. I kind of use this picture that for the last 12 years, you've gone to school and you generally knew what to expect when you went to school. Even if you were homeschooled, you knew you would wake up and what routine you were going to do. If you went to a more traditional school setting for the last 12 years, then you woke up, you went to school at 8, you did whatever until lunch. Like you had this routine that you know. Next year, even if you're going to college, that routine is not the same. Classes are at different times. The professors have different expectations. You can fail much easier. There's these routines that you've had for the last 12 years that are totally going to get thrown out the window. You know how to do school, but now you're going separate ways. You're not just looking for jobs. You're looking for potential careers. You're going to military service. You're going to college. You're maybe starting out a community college to dip your toe in. You're moving out on your own. These are all such exciting things. And there's going to be so many highs, guys. It's such a fun time. But I'm just telling you right now, all these people who are telling you this is going to be the best time of your life, there's also going to be some really big lows. And that is okay and very normal. So when you get stuck in these places of feeling isolated, of feeling like this is weird and you miss high school and you wish you could go back to that space, give it time. It won't feel like this forever. As I worked with high school seniors and saw them become freshmen at my colleges the last couple of years, I just watched this happen over and over, particularly in like the November, October timeframe. Just the blow of everything being different can be a little bit hard. So a little behind the scenes information. I'm going to post this YouTube so you can access this video if you want to watch it. This is from she was a freshman when she made this, a freshman in college. And I think it speaks not only to people who are going to college, but also people who are just going into careers. She's talking about this issue of trying to find her people, of not feeling isolated, and how everybody said this would be the best time in her life, but she's not feeling it. And I watched the video on my first lecture, and I actually got flagged on YouTube. So she must have some music rights that I do not have. So I will post this so you can watch it if you're interested. But it's definitely something that I thought was interesting and pertinent to this conversation. So ultimately, the reason I chose the metamorphosis is because your transition from childhood to adulthood, which is like at its peak right now, is one of the most profound metamorphoses that we make in our lives. It's much better than turning into a bug, I will tell you that. And there are so many rites of passage that come with it. And it's exciting and it's nerve wracking and it's fun and there's all these highs, but it can sometimes be really, really lonely. And so for this final assignment, I'm asking you to write me 4 reflective paragraphs. So you've read The Metamorphosis, and I'm asking you to read a New York Times article by Dhruv Kullar that talks about how social isolation is killing us. I have 4 prompts on our worksheet. You can, well, I have more than 4. I want you to choose 2, and then I've asked everyone to consider 2. And then I want you to use your best work. I'm looking for you to be reflective. I want you to think about the themes that we've read in our works and connect it with what's happening in your own lives. And that's going to be it. It's not a difficult final. It's definitely one where I want you to think about your own selves and put yourselves in these texts. So what do these texts tell us about our ability or our inability to communicate, and how does that impact us? What do these texts tell us about how we choose to define ourselves? Think about, to what extent do the strength and depth of our relationships make us actually human? And do you see any connections to these texts in our current situation today, not only with social media, but also with quarantine and shelter at home and just this weird turmoil that our country is in right now? I'm really excited to see your responses. I can't tell you enough how honored I have felt to be your teacher this last year. So thank you for all of your hard work. I know this isn't the senior year you dreamed of, but you're certainly all wonderful students, and I'm really going to miss you all. Bye.